denormalization. Utilizing denormalization strategies to improve. Now, first of all, I don't understand denormalization.
Oh, quick. Well, you can't understand denormalization until you understand normalization. So the normalization of data is a way to store data to maintain integrity, so that especially in complex data. If you have, you know, a list of your friends, you don't need to normalize or denormalize that. You know, that's it. But you know, so you may be familiar with second normal form, third normal form. I believe there's a fourth normal form. What this does is it's a way of organizing data so that data exists only in one place, which means there's no redundancy that isn't built in for performance and security reasons. There's no redundancy in that data where I may, as I change information about Mike O'Donnell, that I may lose that connection to all of the records that may sit somewhere else that may talk about all of Michael O'Donnell's integrity. So it's all about referential integrity. So the idea to with normalization is to say we have Mike O'Donnell and then we have Mike O'Donnell's orders. We don't put them all in there where Mike O'Donnell's records has that, because it's bad for performance and there's problems. But by normalizing data, now you've got these relationships so that when I delete Michael O'Donnell from my database, are there orphan records out there of Michael O'Donnell's, activity that may be floating around there with now no parent records. So that's what normalization was about, relational databases. That's what, that's at the core of maintaining data integrity. Now, that doesn't always lend itself to good performance, right? Because now you've got lots of connections and joins between these different tables that are connected, that have been created through this normalization process, that are slowing down the queries because they become very complex. And instead of just going and reading stuff out of one table, now it's got to say, oh, get this for me from this table, and then find things from this table, but only when they have this, and then, and it slows down the performance. So a lot of what's going on in migrations is moving to higher performance databases. They want things like real-time analytics, so that when Michael O'Donnell's out on his Google site or his Amazon site, that they can quickly come up with new ideas of things to sell Michael O'Donnell in real time. Highly normalized data in relational databases does not lend itself to that very well. So you do have to denormalize in order to performance, but you have to understand that denormalization so that you can account for it, because you cannot denormalize at the and cause data integrity problems. If that's the case, then you've again lost before you started. So what happens with things that normally from a referential integrity would happen in a database management system in the relational world now has to be handled separately, either by some of the back end processes of a NoSQL database, or something that now needs to be built into the application to make sure that the application is taking care of that in order to get the performance from the database. So it's a very tricky thing where you're now starting to, and your document databases are the same, where now you're breaking all the normalization rules and stuffing everything into one record, because one record's really easy, quick, and fast to read, right?
Totally get
So
it. Understand now, but isn't there a problem there? Okay, am I creating more problems? Okay, I get a benefit in terms of performance, but am I creating more problems down the road?
not if you handle it, not if you're aware of what you're doing in that denormalization process and you account for it.
Okay.
Again, it's all about accounting for things. There might be some cat lovers out there, so I'm not going to use what I normally say, but there's a lot of different ways to cook a turkey, right?
Yeah.
And it really depends on what you want. Do you want crispy skin? Do you want juicy meat? Or do you not want to die of salmonella poisoning, right?
Okay.
So, depends on your priority.
Yeah.
If your priority is real time, then you need to you need to understand that this data has been denormalized. The impact of that denormalization is that we need to build these safeguards in so that we don't lose data integrity. Right? That was the reason why Oracle became so popular and relational databases were so popular, because it took the need to handle that in an application and put it and built it right into the database. It was great, but that was when we were doing a lot of batch processing, right? But as times change, application code and capabilities on that side become better and better over time.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily need that. So now it's always a sort
It's a
of,
fashion. It's kind of comes and
it's
goes.
not a passion. It's just what's your priority. So nobody would, 30 years ago was trying, 30, 40 years ago was trying to do online analytics on a data transaction, because data transactions weren't happening online. We didn't have an Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Right now we do. We want that real time satisfaction, that right from the user interface. So now we have to have performance. So that becomes the priority. So now that's the priority, what are we going to do to mitigate the risk that priority presents to our organization? We denormalize, understand that denormalization, and make sure that we account for it somewhere else within that system to make sure that we're not introducing problems for the for the sake of expediency and speed.
This is a very early on design decision to be done, or is this something you just uncover?
Yeah, I would say that at not the denormalization, but I think that when you're migrating a database, there's a lot of different migrations. You're migrating from one version of Oracle to another. You're moving from you know a Oracle to Postgres. Maybe you're doing that for licensing costs and just trying to save money. Right? Denormalization not going to be a big factor in this. It's not really going to be any part of it. But if you're wanting to go and say that our order system was something where somebody could go in and batch up an order and just send in that order, and then the order would go out and go into all the different systems and they would get a product eventually, and now we want to move to something where I'm trying to market to you while that order is being placed, well, yeah, then denormalization is going to be a huge part of that, because you're going to need a different type of database management system to handle that. So yes, that'll be early on, not the nature of the denormalization, but the fact of the matter is that that's going to be part and parcel of what you're doing, and now you can put that into your project plan.
Okay.
And again, all of these things are at the core benefit of doing things like data intelligence and data modeling. It's like the broken record that I am, right? It's doing the work up front to avoid the mess that results from not doing good planning. It's like anything else. Would you buy a house that didn't have a blueprint, an architectural blueprint? Well,
Would you build a
not
house?
hard, but would you
Would you
live in it? Would you live in it?